Hi kids! Great to see you and thanks so much for tuning in. This broadcast is because I gave a talk to the medical students, well there were 50 of them, medical students who were thinking of becoming GPs, and the talk went down very well, but I think it was best received by me because I thought I needed reminding about some of these things. So I thought, well, I'll share it with my patients and anybody else who might benefit from these simple rules of life, and especially students. Well, the title of the talk, I agonised over what to call the talk, and I eventually decided how to live your wildest dreams and make your life a masterpiece. Now, unfortunately, this leads inevitably to the question, well, Doctor, did you live your wildest dreams and make your life a masterpiece? And going back the 50 odd years to when I was a medical student, I guess my wildest dreams ran something like this. I hoped to qualify, and that was by no means a given with my somewhat checkered career as a medical student. I wanted to become a good, general, all-round doctor. I would hope to eventually achieve a level of competence as a doctor and be really helpful to people. And helping people is the most wonderful thing you can do as a doctor, so I would hope that I would not only be clinically competent, but also willing to try unusual things. Maybe I'd learn something about hypnosis, spinal manipulation, stuff that I'd be really effective at helping patients. So eventually I dreamed of being really liked, not loved by my patients, respected by other doctors. I hoped that I would be a teacher, a good teacher of medicine. Maybe you can give some lectures. I always wanted to go to these posh hotels, where they put lecturers up that I couldn't afford at the time. I thought that would be great. Lecture throughout the UK, and wildest dream, of course, lecture around the world. Wouldn't that be amazing? With good friends and colleagues, some top guys around the world, top colleagues. I also had dreams that maybe on the back of being a good lecturer, I could even do after dinner speeches. Some of those stand-up comics were my dreams. Stand-up comedy, yeah, that would be great. I also dreamed that maybe I'd write a couple of books. I also love the 60s music, and my dream was to become a singer and a player in a 60s rock band. What a dream. I also dreamed that maybe I'll be a radio doctor, maybe do a bit of TV. I also dreamed that I would get a lovely place in the countryside, maybe a little place by the seaside for weekends away sometimes. I also dreamed that I would hang on to my wife so we didn't get divorced and pour money down the avaricious gullets of lawyers, and that I would get children who remain friends with me into my dotage and continue to inspire me. Well, kids, I've got to tell you the truth. I've done all of these things. Oh, some of them quite spectacularly. But when you hear the path that led to them, maybe you won't have such a high opinion that it seems on the surface. Well, after qualifying, and I did qualify, I messed around a bit. I did 6 months in obstetrics so that I'd feel a proper doctor, and we were short of money. So I arranged a locum in the Fen country. Being a GP was supposed to be easy. They didn't even bother teaching us about what to do in general practice at medical school. So I assumed it would be a breeze, I'd make a lot of money, and we would survive. Kids, I could not believe this job. I could not believe it. Not only were the day-to-day things awful, I knew nothing about them. I knew a bit about antibiotics, and I knew a bit about painkillers and stuff, but there were so many areas where I was totally ignorant. Not only that, but I could be called out to emergencies. I remember one day there was a case of drowning, and there's this mile long of cars, And I had to drive my way to the front of the mile and get to where the police vans and the ambulance was. This rookie GP in his tatty old car. And they all said the same, it's okay, the doctor's here. Me? And this happened for a few emergencies. I was traumatized after this short stay in general practice. I decided whatever I was going to do, general practice, no way. It was the craziest job in the world. And I applied for a job in pathology. In the meantime, we were staying in my hometown, living with my parents. I was out boozing with my old friends every night, while signed on the dole, and life was quite pleasant as I recovered from the traumas of my locum in general practice. Then one day, one of the doctors I'd met while I was doing my obstetrics came to visit us. He said, by the way, there's a job coming up just outside Stoke-on-Trent. The guy is really desperate. He might even consider you. But if you want it, I'll put in a word for you and I'm sure you'll get it. I said, no, thank you. I've tried general practice. It's the craziest job in the world. There's no way I am ever going to do general practice. As luck would have it, my wife was listening. She said, you will take the job. You know, I did the John Cleese. She said, we have a 3-month-old baby. We are living in your mother's house and I will not stay here 1 second longer than is absolutely necessary. You don't argue with my wife if you know her. So we went to this little village called Teen outside Stoke-on-Trent. And after a sequence of enormous gins, I signed on the dotted line to be a partner. That was the way it happened in those days in general practice. Oh kids, I signed with such a heavy heart. There I was in a job that I dreaded. It was not only impossible to do, but there were nights on call. It was every second or third weekend on call, dealing very busily. It was so busy and dealing with subjects I knew so little about. That was a moment of quite black despair to me, and this is the rule number 1 I learnt from it. No matter how bad your despair is, no matter how black things look, every single one listening, please know there will be light at the end of the tunnel. And if you're young, please always remember that no matter how bad you get, no matter how depressed, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. So anyway, I went in on Monday morning, all ready to see my patients, and there seemed to be a lot of these Kanakari syndromes, you know, called Kanakari because they come in with a bad back saying, Doctor, I can't hurry on working with me back like this. Well, what did I know about backache? I hadn't been taught about it like that. I knew that secondary cancers could do it. I knew that syphilis was a great mimic. TB? I don't know. But I did a history. I took a history. And I did a very careful examination, including a rectal examination. Because we were taught at medical school, if you don't put your finger in, you put your foot in it. And I remember a very famous surgeon who said, practice rectal examination at every available opportunity. They are gold mines of information and impress the patients most wonderfully. So I followed that rule, did a rectal examination on all these people. Well, the word quickly got around my village. Don't go and see the new fella Shevlin for a Sicknote on a Monday morning. He sticks his finger up your jacksie. Can you believe that my patients mistook my conscientiousness for some kind of digital deterrent against sick notes on a Monday morning? Well, obviously this situation couldn't last. I seemed to be making a fool of myself, so I enrolled. I'd heard about a guy called James Syriac, the World Authority on Spinal Manipulation and other things, joint injection, soft tissue diagnosis. And it was quite a long, I think it was about a 10-day course. So I went on this course. There I am, with all these smart people who knew what they were doing, one greenhorn, totally at sea. bum new GP trying to come to grips with it. Well, I took my new learnings back to general practice, and amazingly, many years later, after James Syriacs died and his widow wanted to keep the institution going, I helped to lecture and demonstrate on his courses. That did not seem possible at the time as I tried to grow up with a new discipline. Well, I was not only learning about backache and joints, I was learning about every bloody thing there was. Any courses run by drug companies, I was the first man in the queue. Not only did I learn from the lectures which they put on, but also from meeting colleagues and swapping around ideas. I went on any weekend courses that were available. And another thing I did, I signed up to a company called Audio Digest Family Practice, a wonderful American organisation where they sent the old audio cassettes. Young people won't even remember them. So that I could play them in the car while I was driving around. Every moment of the day I was driving in the car, I was learning more and more. Even on night calls when I went driving off into rural Staffordshire on a call, I was playing these educational tapes. Well, my star began to rise. Patients, actually, I couldn't believe it, were actually waiting to make a point of seeing me, the rookie greenhorn GP. Can you imagine that? And this was a bit of a mixed blessing in some ways. The joy I'd learned from Syriacs was if you don't know if something's safe, don't do it. If something is safe but you don't know if it'll work, give it a go. And this was a wonderful directive. Not only for medicine, if you've got a patient suffering and what you're doing isn't working, try something else. Try anything else. And I was beginning to think out of the box. I was using hypnosis. I had a couple of patients who were dying at the time, tragic. I still remember them vividly. A lovely 50-odd-year-old lady dying of breast cancer and a 14-year-old boy dying of cancer. And because I was learning hypnosis, I was able to bring something to the table to try and help relieve their pain and misery. In those days, we didn't have Dougie Mack. It was the doctor, your GP and the district nurse who bore the brunt of looking after terminal care people. So if you don't know something will work, don't you try it. And that's a good motto for life, you know. As you get old, you're far more forgiving of your failures when you tried and gave something a good go than if you didn't try. You're far more forgiving of your sins of commission, your errors of commission, when you tried and failed, than your errors of omission, chickening out of doing the right thing. Well, patients were queuing up to see me after a while, which was a mixed blessing because I'll be honest with you, some patients really got up my nose. I don't like the expression, but some patients really pissed me off. I told you I spoke to drug companies. Well, just then they brought out a new antidepressant. I don't know, Gloom-Ritalin or Grumpy-Gon, some fancy name. And they said they'd give us a ballpoint pen and a Superman comic, a trivial gift, if we'd try some patients on it. Well, just then, there was a lady who was driving me nuts. Oh my God, she was an old heart sink patient. Whenever I saw this poor lady, I felt my heart sink. Inside I was thinking, oh my God, not you again. But remembering the adage, if you don't know it, you know it's safe. If you don't know if it'll work, why not try something? So I put this lady on the new Grumpy-Gon. Because you won't believe me. I'm sure you won't believe me. This lady came back 3 weeks later. She was transformed. I was looking at a different human being. She went out. I heard my voice saying, how lovely to see you. Sincerely. As the door closed behind her, I thought, I've got it. I have stumbled off the pharmacological treatment for patients who are brassing me off. And at that stage, any patients who were getting up my nose, I'd say, what you need is a bit of this new wonder drug called Gloom-Ritalin. It strengthens your nerves and builds you up. And I was getting good results. No, I'm being modest there. I was getting spectacular results until the penny finally dropped that I was missing this disease called depression. Now this depression, this disease called it, is a tragic thing to miss because it's common, it's horrible, it's bad for your health. Some people put it almost as bad as cigarette smoking. But it's understandable that we did miss this disease called depression. We didn't see the ordinary type of depression of general practice in medical school. The guy who we saw in hospital was weeping a bucket full of tears. He looked like his house just burnt down, he'd been told he got cancer, and his wife's just found out how to go shopping on eBay. Okay, that guy is depressed, but I looked for all the subtle signs that might mean that depression, antidepressant medication could work the magic. And let me tell you, I studied depression like stink. I knew all my antidepressants. I learned them because I knew there was so much at stake. But the biggest thing I learned about depression is this, that depression is an infectious disease. And if we don't get it, especially as doctors, it will get us. These are the patients who keep coming back with one damn thing after another, demoralising you, dragging you down, and yet, if you enjoy treating depression, somebody comes in like that, oh great, a chance to turn their life around and make their life better. So depression is bad for you and it's an infectious disease. And one thing I've got to say to you, the opposite is also true. Happiness is also an infectious disease. Oh yes. And happiness and laughter are good for your health. It's like a lovely benign virus, and we should all try to be part of that epidemic. I would say to you that your biggest duty to everyone that loves and cares about you, everybody that you rub shoulders with, maybe even the planet Earth itself, is to be happy yourself. Happiness spreads. Surround yourself with happy people and make people who surround you happy. While I was doing better, I was beginning to enjoy general practice. I was beginning to feel important, but one day I felt even more important. When a drug rep came to see me and said, would I give a lecture at the Ratcliffe Infirmary, Oxford, the Ratcliffe Infirmary. The title of the talk was Dizziness, and this was a formula that worked brilliant for a drug company. They get 5 top experts. So on dizziness, they get an ear, nose and throat expert, they get a neurologist, geriatrician, general medical guy, maybe a physiotherapist, and one bum GP to make up the numbers, because general practice, we see 95% of all the patients complaining with dizziness, so it's a bit nonsensical to have a symposium on dizziness without a GP. Kids, can you imagine? I was up studying, I soon figured out that it was a poison chalice, that dizziness can be anything. It can be anything from Meniere's disease, it can be a brain tumour, it can be a heart attack, it can be a pulmonary embolism, it can be any infection, it can be psychological, anything. Boy, did I hit the books for that talk. And in great states of high anxiety, I gave my talk. Well, for whatever reason, my talk went so well that the drug company was delighted with me. And they got me to give that same talk on dizziness in many other venues throughout the country, each time staying in a wonderful posh hotel way out of my financial range. It was fabulous. And then they gave me other lectures to do because they had interest in a lot of different things. So there was gastroenterology, pretty well the whole of gastroenterology they were interested in, PMT, premenstrual syndrome, and geriatrics, loads of stuff. So I was giving a lot of lectures. And then we got allocated some medical students. This was even better because I had to study a hell of a lot more. And here I found something very interesting, that I learnt best in all the ways I had by giving a talk. Once you've explained something to somebody clearly, I felt that I really understood it. So I was very blessed in having so many ways of learning, and above all, teaching. Well, after that, my lecturing career slowly took off, and one of the guys who I'd spoken with for the drug company was very important in the British Medical Association, and he got me to give a lecture on hypnosis in Canada for a big BMA bash, and that went down well. Well, since then, my lecture career just went off, and I've spoken, You're still talking to this greenhorn. I've spoken in over 20 countries throughout the world, in unusual places like Cuba, Mexico, Zimbabwe, Turkey. Yeah, over 20 countries on loads of different topics. About that time also, we had trainees. These were doctors who decided on a career in general practice, and it was a privilege to teach these and rationalise on what we're doing. It was a sacred privilege, and I personally have trained about 35, 36 of these people, most of them who became real top GPs, and many of them are still talking to me. It's just wonderful. What else happened? Well, about that time, there was a rock band, and they'd only just started, and the bass player kept turning up drunk or not at all. I said, boys, I don't know what a bass looks like, but I'll learn it if you'll put up with me. And I did join this rock band, and I hope some of you may have heard it around here, but we've actually made way over 150,000 quid for different charities, and even my kids like our rock band. Around about that time too, I started doing radio. Yeah, I did radio from 1984 on and off until last year, when I got the sack for, shall I say, being a bit too honest about things. I was talking about the parasites on the NHS, the lawyers, the important executives who contribute nothing, and all the quangos that just bleed the NHS white and do nothing but impair the foot. And I'm right about this. When you look at the new COVID vaccine and how quickly that was brought to fruition, wasn't it amazing? It would have taken at least 5 years if there hadn't been that political directive. What did we do? We cut out all the poisonous, energy-sapping bureaucrats, and I bet every single one of you have come across this. So there it is. When I look at all my dreams, I seem to have done everything that I wanted to achieve. Sometimes quite spectacularly. I've written 3 books. I've got a wonderful, tolerant wife who continues to put up with me. Fabulous kids who continue to inspire me. Beautiful home in the countryside and in a little place at weekend. I've ticked all my boxes, and I guess I have lived my wildest dreams. Has it been a masterpiece? Of course not. You know how it happened. Of course it hasn't been a masterpiece. In fact, in some ways, I feel an imposter. But above all, I've been very lucky. I've been lucky with my wife and family. I've been lucky having such wonderful friends. I've been lucky doing a job which I adore. And it's sad that I had the best years of the NHS and general practice. But above all, I was lucky in having the most wonderful bunch of people who were my patients, who stood shoulder to shoulder with my hardest times and helped me through it. And thank you, all my patients, for helping me to live my wildest dreams. I hope you'll all be as happy as you can possibly be and live your dreams too. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye.